Welcome viewers. Today we will be discussing about the role of environment in determining organizational structure. Here we will be discussing about what is environment, different aspects of specific and general environment. We will understand what is the difference between the specific and general environment, describe various contributions of Burns and Stalker, the theorists who have described about the role of environment and its impact on maintaining organizational stability. Emery and Trist, Lawrence and Lorsch, and the contingency theories of management. Review three-stage model of change in population ecology model. So, to begin with, we will understand what is organization environment. Environment, as we know, is a set of force that is surrounding an organization and which has a potential impact to affect the way it operates and assess the scarce resources. As we know that an organization has very limited resources and all the organizations are competing to have access over the resources. What is organizational domain? The particular range of the goods and services that the organization produces and the customers and other stakeholders whom it serves. Further, we will also discuss in details about the organization and its specific environment like the customers, distributors, unions, competitors, suppliers and the government, which has a direct impact on the performance of organization and how does it interfere in achievement of goals. There are also factors in the general environment like the demographic and cultural forces, international factors or international forces, political forces, technological forces, economic forces and environmental forces. These factors also have an influence on organization and its performance. However, they may not have a direct influence on their performance. So, to learn more in details, the environment is everything outside an organization's boundary, and the general environment encompasses conditions that may have an impact on organization, but their relevance is not very clear, not overtly clear. The specific environment is that part of the environment that is having a direct impact or directly relevant to the organization in achieving its goals. At any given point of time, it is the part of the environment with which management will be concerned because it is made up of critical constituencies, stakeholders that can positively or negatively influence the organization's effectiveness. So, components of external environment are specific environment and general environment. These are integral part of organization's environment. External forces that have a direct and immediate impact on organization are called the specific environment, and general environment factors include the broad economic, socio-cultural, political, legal, demographic, technological and global conditions that may affect the organization. So, to know in details about the specific environment, which is otherwise also called the task environment, the forces from outside stakeholder groups that directly affect the organization's ability to have access over resources, the scarce and limited resources, how organizations are vying to have control or to secure the resources. Outside stakeholders include customers, distributors, unions, competitors, suppliers, and the government. The organization must engage in transactions with all outside stakeholders to obtain resources to survive. That means the organizations need to have an exchange of information, organizations need to collaborate, must engage in all sorts of transactions in order to have resources to sustain and survive. The specific environment has a direct and immediate impact on the company's day to day operations and their performance. So, let us understand how the factors in the specific environment has an impact on organization and its performance. There are various examples which I would like to cite. Say for example, the first factor is customers. Customers and how they have impacted on organization and industry. To begin with, let us take an example of Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola introduced low sugar and sugar-free options In response to the growing consumers' health trends, consumers' health consciousness, which directly impacted its product and marketing strategy, product strategy, sales in the beverage industry, it has impacted its performance. Competitors, how competitors have influenced or impacted the organization's performance. When Patanjali entered the fast moving consumer goods segment with natural ingredient, natural products, it came with an early warning signal to established companies. It has created a threat in the sector. The already existing customers were threatened, forcing them to develop similar products or Me Too products to remain competitive. Suppliers also can have an impact on organizations' performance. A drought can affect the availability of a specific raw material like cotton, increasing costs of clothing manufacturers and impacting their production capabilities. So, regulators also regulatory factors or legal issues, regulations can also have an impact on organizations' performance, like Amazon's adaptation to new data privacy laws like the GDPR required significant changes in data handling, directly impacting its operations and compliance procedures. So, to summarize, what we have discussed is there are various factors in the specific environment or the task environment of an organization, like customers, competitors, suppliers, and regulatory frameworks or legislations, which can have an impact on organization and its performance. Similarly, the general environment, the forces that shape the specific environment and affect the ability of all organizations in a particular environment to obtain resources, the general environmental factors, the general environment or macro environment profoundly impacts both individual organizations and entire industries by presenting certain opportunities and threats that are largely beyond a single company's control. These impact can be categorized using the PESTEL framework, that is political, economic, social, technological, environmental and legal factors. The general environment factors are considered as the economic forces. The factors such as interest rates, the state of economy and the unemployment rate determine the level of demand for products and the price of inputs. Technological factors or technological forces like the development of new production techniques and new information processing equipment influence many aspects of organizations' operations. Economic forces also influence, like economic forces like the interest rates and the state of economy and the unemployment rate determine the level of demand of the product and the price of input. Technological factors, the development of new production techniques, new information processing equipment influence many aspects of organizations' operations. So, various factors in the general environment like economic factors, technological factors, economic forces, technology, they have all helped in, they have influenced the organization and its operations. Let us understand each one of them in more details. The impact of political and legal factors. A change in government's corporate tax policy can directly impact a company's profitability and investment decisions. Imposition of new tariffs on imported goods can increase cost of production for industries reliant on imports, forcing them to raise their prices or seek new suppliers. Operating in politically unstable regions poses significant risks. Civil unrest or a change in the government can disrupt operations, cause property damage, and financial loss. Environmental protection laws or regulations on plastic usage or various regulations can force organizations to invest in cleaner technologies or sustainable practices affecting the entire supply chain. Factors in economic environment or economic factors during economic recession and unemployment, consumers have less disposable income and they reduce spending. This negatively impacts industries like luxury, retail, or travel, while discount retails might see an opportunity, rising interest rates increase the cost of borrowing for businesses, hinders plans for expansion of new investment. High inflation increases the cost of raw material and labor across the entire industry. Fluctuations in exchange rates affect the cost of exports and imports, influencing the competitiveness of domestic products in global market. The social and demographic factors like the growing health consciousness of people led to the food and beverage industry to offer more low sugar or plant based options, changing product development strategies. Changing demographics of the people like aging population creates opportunities in industries such as healthcare, retirement planning, and senior services, while companies targeting younger demographics or younger generations might need to adjust their locations or product lines. The cultural factors also influence organizations' performance. The rise of remote work, a trend accelerated by the COVID 19 pandemic, led to surge in the demand of collaboration tools, cloud services, home office equipments, transforming the technology and the real estate industries. Technological factors like automation and e commerce platforms like Amazon have fundamentally transformed the retail industry, forcing traditional brick and mortar stores to uh, adapt to environment, adapt or face decline. Technological innovation such as emergence of smartphones can quickly displace existing products and market leaders who failed to adapt as seen in the case of Nokia. Increased use of technology and resulting data protection regulations, for example, GDPR, requires business to invest in data security and compliance measures. Environmental factors like climate change and natural disasters, industries such as agriculture and tourism have been heavily affected by the changing weather patterns and an increase in natural disasters. Following a major natural disaster, an opportunity may arise for construction and material supply companies during the rebuilding efforts. Sustainability concerns like growing environmental awareness among consumers, the pressures entire industries, for example, fashion, automotive, to adopt more sustainable practices, use of eco friendly materials, and reduce their carbon footprints to maintain a positive brand image. So, with few examples of political and legal factors like demonetization and UPI push, the 2016 demonetization policy in India, along with the government's push for a unified payment strategy, created a massive opportunity for the digital payment industry like Paytm. Make in India initiatives aims to promote domestic manufacturing and attract foreign investments. Industries like automotive and electronics have benefited from incentives and a push for local production, expanding their manufacturing bases. Environmental regulations, the strict environmental laws, regulations, or carbon emissions and waste disposal affect manufacturing like steel and power industries. For example, the power giant NTPC, National Thermal Power Corporation, which has traditionally relied heavily on coal, faces pressure to invest in renewable sources of energy like power, solar power to comply with regulations and meet growing environmental consciousness. Economic factors, GDP growth and rising disposable income in early 2000s led to a boom in the automobile industry. Companies like Tata Motors expanded their range of passenger vehicles to meet consumer demand for affordable cars. Inflation rates, high inflation increases production cost and can reduce consumer purchasing power. Fast moving consumer goods industry such as Hindustan Lever and ITC constantly scan economic environment and adjust their pricing strategy or product sizes to appeal different income groups. The social and cultural factors like a growing consumer awareness and concern for environmental sustainability and health has led to a shift of demand for natural and eco-friendly products. Brands like Patanjali Ayurveda has successfully aligned their offerings with this trend, changing lifestyle and urbanization. The rise of nuclear families, increasing number of working professionals, dual career couple, especially women in the workforce, and rapid urbanization have influenced the demand for convenience oriented services. This created opportunities for innovative business models like app based cab service, Ola cabs, Ola and Uber cabs, and packaged home cooked food delivery services. There are packed foods, ready to eat food. All this has increased, or their demand has increased. Technological factors like digital disruption and e-commerce, smartphones and internet connectivity has transformed industries. Companies across sectors from retail to food service like Zomato have leveraged social media for marketing and adopted e-commerce platforms. Automation and production techniques with technological advancements in manufacturing processes such as in automation and advanced engineering have been very crucial for global players setting up operations in India. For example, in the automotive sector, this has created a lot of opportunity. This helps in improving efficiency, reducing cost, and achieving international quality standards. Environmental factors like dependence on monsoon rains, the agriculture industry is highly dependent on natural factors like weather and climatic conditions. The unpredictable nature of monsoons poses a significant risk to crop production, requiring the sector to focus on irrigation, infrastructure, and climate resilient practices. Pollution concerns, severe air and water pollution issues, problems related to the waterborne issues, water pollution, particularly in industrial hubs, have led to increased regulatory scrutiny. Manufacturing units are often required to establish industries away from the residential zones and invest in cleaner technologies to minimize their environmental footprints and avoid penalties. There are various proponents or the management practitioners who have thrown light on the impact of environment on organizational structure or organizational sustainability. I would like to discuss few of the management practitioners and their contribution towards organizations structure, their organization sustainability, how organizations can continue to maintain their sustainability or be more effective in performing despite the effect of environment. So there is no best way to organize, rather an optimal structure is dependent upon the organization's environment and the specific challenges. In each environment, an organization's specific and the general environment, there are opportunities as well as challenges. So which throws challenges for the environment to sustain and survive. So we will be taking up few theories proposed by management practitioners like Burns and Stalker, Emery and Trist, and Paul Lawrence and J. Lorsch. So, discussing about them, we will get to know about how the environment has helped in forming structures, different types of structures, how environment emphasizes on optimization of social and technical systems, and what is the how organizations have adapted to the changing business environment by adopting differentiation and integration strategy. To begin with, we first discuss about the contribution of Burns and Stalker. They have in their work 1961, in their famous work Management of Innovations, introduced two contrasting views on organizational structures, which broadly talks about mechanistic and organic form of structure. Further, Emery and Trist in 1960s, they have come up with uh, the view of socio-technical systems theory, which emphasizes on joint optimization of social and technical systems. Paul Lawrence and J. Lorsch are two prominent scholars associated with organization and environment, differentiation and integration theory, which advances open systems view of organization. Differentiation and integration is required to adapt to the changing environment. So, understanding the impact of environment on organizational survival, we will first discuss in more details about Burns and Stalker 1961, how they have conducted their seminal study with this background of impact of environment on organizational survival, sought to determine the best structure and how organizations adopt a dynamic environment. They have discussed about how the organization determines the best structure in a dynamic environment. So their work was influenced by open systems approach and emerging contingency theory. This influence was accentuated by inability of both classical and scientific management and human relations theory to resolve the complexities occasioned by the environmental changes. The failure of human relations theory, scientific management theory, and the classical theories have led Burns and Stalker to seek explanation for influence of external environment on organizational designs. They adopted a macro view or a macro perspective rather than a micro structural approach proposed by the sociologists. They have concluded that mechanistic and organic management systems are resultant of rate of environmental change, which is caused due to technological basis of production and market situation, prevailing political, economic, social and legal environment. Burns and Stalkers argued that best structure depends on stability of external environment. Mechanistic systems are highly bureaucratic, centralized authority, clear hierarchies, they have a specialized task and formal communication mechanism. They thrive in stable, predictable environment where efficiency and control is of paramount importance. For example, a large established manufacturing company producing standardized products like General Motors benefits from mechanistic structure to ensure predictable, reliable output. Organic structures on the other hand are flexible, decentralized and emphasize horizontal communication, teamwork and are loosely defined roles. They are suited for dynamic, rapidly changing business environment that require quick adaptation and innovation. Let us take an example like in the early technological startups like Apple in the personal computer segment or industry's infancy, they utilized organic structure to foster creativity and respond rapidly to the emerging technological shifts. Moving further, we will understand the role of socio-technical systems theory and causal structure of environment proposed by Emery and Trist. Fred Emery and Eric Trist from the Tavistock Institute in London, they have made key contributions in terms of understanding or giving a perspective of socio-technical systems theory, which is famously called as STS theory, and concept of causal texture of organizations environment. Socio-technical systems theory, it highlights the complex interaction between the human aspect or the social aspect and technological or the technical aspect of a work. They found that optimizing one system while ignoring the other leads to problems or issues. Success requires joint optimization of both social and technical systems. If you want an organization to be effective, there has to be optimum utilization of social and technical subsystems. For example, a study of British coal mines have observed that technological redesigns reduced productivity and morale. Mines that empowered multi-skilled workers working in teams with control over the entire mining cycle, considering both the new machinery and the solid dynamics, were more productive and safer. The causal structure or causal texture of the environment proposed four types of environment based on their complexity and rate of change, from placid, randomized, turbulent fields. They argued that environment itself is dynamic and can become turbulent, requiring organizations to adapt their structure and adopt shared values to navigate uncertainty effectively. Paul Lawrence and J. Lorsch developed contingency theory by studying how firms in different industries manage the balance between differentiation, which arises due to division of labor, and integration, that is, collaboration across divisions. Differentiation refers to the degree to which different departments within an organization develop unique structures, goals, and communication styles to deal with their specific environment. For example, research and development faces a dynamic environment while production faces a stable one. Integration refers to coordination required among different departments to achieve organizational goals. Effective organizations in stable industries, for example, container manufacturing, highly formalized and had low differentiation and integration needs, while firms in a dynamic, turbulent industry, in plastics industry, which was highly volatile and innovative, successful firms needed highly specialized research and development, sales team, and production units, high differentiation. They achieved integration through cross functional teams and project managers to ensure new products are developed, move efficiently from from concept to the market. Three-stage model of change in population ecology model. Population ecology model in organizational theory tries to help us understand change within an organization is explained through a three-stage process given by the environment. The three stages are variation, selection, and retention. What is variation? This stage involves the emergence of many new forms of organizations or variations. The variations can arise from random chance, entrepreneurship, or an attempt to meet new environmental needs. Selection, the environment then selects which of these variations are best suited to survive and grow. Organizations with structures and strategies align well with the environment niche are more common are more likely to acquire resources and thrive while others fail. Organizations with structures and strategies that align well with the environmental niche are likely to acquire resources and thrive while others fail to continue. The third factor is retention. The selected organizational forms are then preserved and institutionalized through the mechanism that sustain and reproduce them. This stage involves mechanisms such as formal policies, cultural norms, and establishment of new organizations that mimic successful ones, allowing the successful variation to become a dominant part of the population. The core idea of the population ecology model is that the environment is the primary driver of organizational change. All the factors in the business environment, like the specific and general environment, have been driving change, and the individual organizations have high inertia and limited ability to adapt once their structure is established. So, therefore, change happens at the level of population of organizations as new, fitter organizations are born and less fit ones die out, much like the theory of natural selection in biological ecosystem or survival of the fittest. So, to conclude the discussion here, we have discussed about organizational specific and general environment specific factors, impact of environment on organization survival. We further discussed about Lawrence and Lorsch contingency theory on how firms maintain balance. We have discussed about the concept of differentiation and integration and the three-stage model of change in population ecology. Thank you.